Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I have done a little bit of simulations off camera, and I've determined that the launch pad had to be upgraded, and so I have upgraded that. You can see the 50k is gone here, and we can go into the VAB here, and I'll show you guys what I have come up with for our tourist rocket, and it is this. Now, this does get the job done, but barely, and it requires that we are pretty precise with it to make this happen. There's not a lot of tolerance for failure here, which, given my current levels of competence, that's not necessarily ideal. We have great thrust to weight until our SRBs are gone, and of course the reason that we could have SRBs here is because we upgraded the launch pad. So that's great. We've already got our tourists in here. I've already verified that this aerodynamically works fine. So, let's go ahead and launch this. Let's get out of here. We got to get this done and get these contracts finished up so that hopefully we can get our maneuver planning going. That will make things so much easier once we have that. But let's just go ahead and turn our SAS on, throttle up, double check our staging. Fantastic. And off we go. Leaping off the launch pad with those SRBs. Absolutely. I'm just going to hold it straight up until the SRBs are off. I don't like to turn with SRBs because you can have impacts as you detach them, so I'd prefer not to have that. So we will just go straight up, detach off our SRBs. They'll impact each other and destroy themselves. Fantastic. And we will begin to turn over here. Now, this rocket absolutely does like to tip over, but as long as I'm not too aggressive with the turn here, then the gimbaling of the engine is sufficient to keep it in place, which is great. Now, I'm going to try to adjust us down a little bit. It looks like we went a little up in our heading here. And this is looking okay. There we go. We should definitely hop into orbital prograde here. And let's just mark that as prograde. And up we go. So our current apoapsis is about 37 kilometers. And that is fantastic. So we're just going to continue going on this ascent profile here. We've got about 500 meters per second left here, but our apoapsis height is not as high as it needs to be just yet. But it will get up there quite soon. Of course, we're now putting more into horizontal speed than we are into vertical, and we're dipping up into space as of now, which is great. 74 and 75 kilometers. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and ditch that. The first stage can burn on up. And we are going to go ahead and continue the second stage in a moment. Let's see here. Do we need to continue it now? No, I don't feel like we do. 23. Is this going up or down? Because we're definitely increasing the apoapsis pretty dramatically right now. Let's go ahead and ride this up. So I'm going to physics warp until we get into space here. We are, of course, now in space. And let's see what this is like at 40 seconds. Okay, this is when we need to be burning, for sure. Since the time to apoapsis is currently increasing. So we will get ourselves as into orbit as we can here. Again, this would be simpler with maneuver nodes. Absolutely. But our thrust to weight in this tank, or our thrust to weight in this particular stage will go up as these tanks drain. So that's great, and we've got quite a bit of time here before we get back into the atmosphere to work on our horizontal speed. We may end up pretty eccentric here, but that's okay. We'll bleed off what we can. Currently moving at about 1.4 kilometers per second. Of course, we need to get up to around 2.3 before we are sufficiently going fast to be in orbit. And that's fine. We are past the apoapsis at this point. I may have warped forward a little further than we needed to. Going at about 1.6 right now. $1.7. It's definitely slow going with this stage. This stage is pretty underpowered right now for what we're trying to do here. That's okay. Once we have maneuver nodes, it will be much, much simpler. 1.8. We still got 12 kilometers to fall. 1.9. We're going to be pretty eccentric. There's no doubt about that. But we can adjust that. Okay, things are looking pretty decent here. $2.2 right now. Okay. Man. We gotta burn up this way, though. We gotta burn radial at this point. Okay. Let's burn radial and adjust this orbit a little bit. We definitely need to bring our apoapsis down. There. This is good enough. We've still got 247 left. And we did technically get these guys into orbit when they only paid for suborbital, but we were doing it anyway, so that is completely fine. So we were definitely a little bit late on the... Like, our first stage is still a little underpowered, right? There's no doubt about that. And that manifested there as having to burn radial in order to fix the apoapsis versus periapsis. We were able to fix it absolutely no problem, and we've got the fuel to get home, so that's not really an issue. I did warp a little further than I probably should have, but it's completely fine. Let's go ahead and orient ourselves retrograde. And the question is, when do we want to bring this on home? Honestly, I want to burn at the periapsis and bring us home, which will be, you know, in just a few seconds here. Well, in 2 minutes, specifically. We're going to need to burn off a fair amount of apoapsis height, but this is going to be absolutely fine. No worries whatsoever. We'll get all these contracts done, and hopefully then we'll be able to get mission planning. That would be awfully useful for going to the moon. We're about 1:40 from the periapsis right now. How much burn time do we have left here? We have 18 seconds of burn time. So we should burn this at 9 seconds to the periapsis. We'll go ahead and warp forward towards that a little bit. I don't want to go too much faster than 5x, maybe 10x. Yeah, that'll be fine. And we'll stop our warp now. We'll orient retrograde. And we will burn this now. This is steeper than I was expecting. I'm actually going to burn prograde here a bit. I don't want to come in quite this steep. That'll be more than fine. We'll position this retrograde, and then we'll do another re-entry burn once we get in a little bit lower here. So we're going to be entering the atmosphere right... Well, not quite now, but very soon. We'll warp ahead to that. There we go. We're in the atmosphere. We'll make sure we're oriented retrograde. And we will physics warp down until we are ready for our re-entry burn. This is only 145 meters per second, so this isn't going to be a big deal. But that will be completely fine. We'll get these guys home. No worries. I think it would have been a little bit of worries, though, at the 4,000. 30,000 is a little high, though, if I'm honest. I just didn't feel like I really had the time to fine-tune that. I would have fine-tuned it more with maneuver nodes, for sure. But as it is right now, I think this is good enough. It'll get us home relatively safely. In fact, quite safely. So excellent. This is going to get us quite a lot of money, hopefully enough to get away with upgrading mission control. That would be a great thing. And now that we have the launch pad upgraded, we're also going to be able to upgrade the Free India launcher, which will be great. Very, very happy to be seeing that one. We are currently still accelerating, of course. That will change as we continue dropping. You can see here our time to periapsis is decreasing, though. We should be on surface retrograde. Excellent. We're starting to see those heating effects. And pretty soon here, I will stop the physics warp, just because I'm always uncomfortable with physics warping during this stage. We're starting to decelerate now. That's great. And we are now negative in the periapsis height. We are in landing mode. I'm going to stop the physics warp. You can see there Valentina was starting to lose control before I stopped the physics warp, but then she actually regained it when I did stop the physics warp. That said, I am expecting Valentina to lose attitude at some point here. We may want to in future add an SAS module on this, or, I mean, air brakes would be fantastic for this re-entry module. For now, though, I'm just waiting until we need to do this re-entry burn. Which is going to be not for a little bit, I think. Just paying attention to attitude here. In fact, I should be paying attention to attitude here, is where I should be paying attention to it. We can see as Valentina starts to try harder and harder to hold the position, and that is when I should start the burn. Like we can see here, she's trying a little bit harder with the pitch, but she's not near her cap yet. So I'm okay with waiting on this. It's rising now. The pitch is definitely coming up. Let's go ahead and turn on the burn. That'll help us hold attitude, and that'll bleed off a couple hundred meters per second. There we go. Okay. Now, we are going to let it go. And reorient retrograde. Perfect. The heat shield will now do its thing. I'm actually surprised we were able to do that, in all honesty. Now, Valentina is currently losing attitude a little bit here. I'm going to help her out manually, because I do not want to lose attitude right now. That is the last thing that I want. Although we are slowing down dramatically, so it is starting to get less and less scary all the time. I am helping out Valentina here, though. Okay. Attitude loss here is completely fine. We don't care anymore. We do want to still be attempting to go retrograde, but this is fine. Again, something like air brakes would be fantastic on this stage. But we're just trying to bleed off as much speed as possible so that hopefully we get a chance to deploy our drogue chutes. There's still a lot of air between us and the ground, of course. We are continuing to slow down here, but we do need a method for maintaining attitude during this re-entry. That's definitely a change that we need to make. But I don't think we really have the tech for it right now. That's okay. Now we will at some point run out of electric charge. But hopefully we'll slow down enough for our drogue chutes. Before then. We're going to run out of electric charge very soon. We're quite aerodynamic here when we go prograde. 600 meters per second. We're still 8 kilometers from the surface, but we're not slowing down as much as I'd like. 500 meters per second and 6 kilometers. Okay, we're good. Got some G-forces there, but I'm sure they're fine. I'm absolutely sure that they're fine. Everybody can pull, you know, like 30 Gs, right? I'm sure that's a thing that they're okay with. Okay, let's go ahead and physics warp onto the ground. Well, technically this is water, not ground. About 1 kilometer above the surface, our main chute will be deploying now, and we're going to be coming in at about 10 meters per second, 9 meters per second. I wonder what the crash tolerance of this is. Probably should have checked that. We could jettison the heat shield, or we could just say, you know what, I'm sure they'll be fine. And that's what we're going to say. I'm sure they'll be fine. But I am going to jettison the heat shield. Right before we land. Excellent. I'm sure that actually had an effect. Actually, I'm not sure. Everything survived. We're good. We're going to recover this. We should even be able to recover that heat shield that we jettisoned. I kind of panic jettisoned that, I'll be honest. And let's see. It should be recoverable still. Parts. Actually, I don't see it. Okay, that's fine. That is completely fine. So we have completed all of these contract parameters. Glorious. Okay, what else do we have in here? That is a whole lot of nonsense that I don't want to do. Okay. That's a lot of focused observational studies. Pass on those for right now. We'll hop into the tracking station. And actually, I want to upgrade the tracking station. We're running a little bit low on funds. That is definitely a thing. If we want to upgrade the tracking station, that's 150K. I suppose we could take one of these as an just for the advance, and then just kind of ignore it. Wait, a TT-70 radial decoupler while orbiting Kerbal between 90 and 100 kilometers. That's something we can actually do. That's super easy. Let's go ahead and grab that. That also gives us a sizable advance. This is completely fine. And the Pug liquid fuel engine, that's a high orbit. I don't think we can get there quite yet. We'll grab that, and that allows us to upgrade the tracking station. That's huge. That is absolutely enormous. So we'll go ahead and open up the Free India Mark III. This is, of course, our science chip. We are going to ditch the tail fins. We're going to swap out the Reliant for a swivel. Okay, and then we need to test a TT-70 radial decoupler. So, we're going to need to grab that. That's in coupling here. And that is this guy. Now, this is the experimental one. Now, I would love to put this in our payload bay, but we definitely can't fit it in there. These are physics-less parts, right? I think so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that, like, right there, in a super awkward fashion. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then we'll just get this up to 90,000 to 100,000 kilometers. Now, I do want to potentially stretch this tank a little bit. I want to make this be, say, a T200 here. And we've got a T800, a T800, and a T400 here. So we obviously don't have the thrust to weight right now to do this. That's okay. We can do some radial decouplers here, and we'll slot them in, say, here. And then we will put in a couple of these big thumper SRBs. Something like this. Now, we're definitely going to need struts here. And how are we doing on our part limit? We're at 28 of 30. That is just good enough. Excellent. Now, I'm a little concerned about this guy causing drag. There's no doubt about that. But I think we will go ahead and save this as the Free India Mark IV. This is definitely a new iteration. And we want to make sure that these are in the same stage here. This goes after that. Thrust to weight here is 2.0. This is a lot of thrust to weight here. We may actually want to thrust limit this down to, say, 50%. What would that even look like in terms of our thrust to weight? 1.25. That's fine. We can thrust limit that down. And then we could have maybe a pair of tail fins down here just to give us some level of aerodynamic control in addition to the gimbal. That's something we could try. Okay, let's run a quick simulation here. I do want to have Jeb in this. So let's run a simulated launch here just to see how it handles in the lower atmosphere. We need to target around 100 kilometers as well. So let's switch into orbital mode. SAS on. Jeb, of course, can't target the orbital mode that we want right now, but double check our staging. Yeah, this all looks good-ish. I don't actually want to stage this, so we'll move that up. Okay, let's see how it handles. It helps if I throttle up. Okay, yeah, that definitely helps. Okay, so this is, of course, our orbital velocity here. Let's look at surface for now, and then we'll swap to orbital once we start our gravity turn, which will be at about 100 meters per second, and we'll just start pitching over a little bit. There we go. Okay, we'll head on over and start making our way towards that prograde marker. This is actually feeling really controllable. Maybe this isn't a simulation at all. Maybe for the sake of time, we should just say this is a real flight. We're not particularly high right now on our apoapsis. So I'm going to sit here and let our apoapsis come up a bit. We will, of course, need to release these SRBs soon. We may want to thrust limit them up a little bit. And, of course, I didn't throttle up, so we lost a little bit of DV there. We ditch those, and we immediately start tipping. Okay. That's interesting to note. We're definitely moving a little bit slow. So I am going to revert this back to the vehicle assembly. And I'm going to bring these up to around 66. 66.5 and 66.5. And let's go ahead and launch this. And this is now the real launch. I think that simulation went well enough. So let's give this a go. Jeb is going to try his best to get up into orbit. Of course, he can't lock any positions, so this is going to be exciting for him. We'll throttle up to full this time. SAS on. And up we go. We're very stable so far. This is definitely better thrust to weight, and we didn't waste a bunch of solid fuel this time. I want to see just how high up we get if we go completely flat here. I also potentially want to rotate us over so that these are facing differently. We're getting some shimmy here. Okay. Let's go ahead and pitch it over a little bit then. See if that straightens itself out. Apoapsis is about 13 kilometers. Okay. We'll have to ditch our SRBs pretty soon. Away they go. Yeah, I think we want to invert which side our fins are on, probably. But I do want to come over to the prograde marker. There we go. And we'll just sit in the prograde marker. This is actually quite good. Yeah, this is working. Our heading is a bit off. We'll see about pulling our heading down. Not that it's super tremendously important for this flight. But we'll just give that a go. Our apoapsis height is plenty high right now. And so we'll just coast. Wait, we need to go to 100. Between 90 and 100 is what we need. So 88, 89, 90, we'll go to about 95. There we go. Excellent. And up we go. Now, we have access to mission planning. So let's go ahead and do something along the lines of that. I actually want this to be... No, not that. No, 0. I want this to be moved ever so slightly. About like that, I think. Maybe? Please? Please let me get out of this. Please? Okay, we'll just have to do that, I guess. Okay, that'll do. So we will, of course, position at the maneuver node. This is going to be a burn time of 1 minute and 51 seconds. So we will position right on over here, and we're going to need to burn this at T minus, let's see here, 30 seconds plus 20.5, so 50.5 seconds, which is right now. Okay, excellent. We'll burn off the last of the fuel in this stage. And then we'll go ahead and run our test here. Wait, I forget how to do that now. We'll have to do that in a moment. Maybe we have to be in proper orbit. It's a possibility. Okay, so we will go ahead and ditch this stage now. And off we go on our more efficient stage. Excellent. I do wish Jeb could lock to the maneuver node, but he can't lock to anything. So, manual it is. There we go. Excellent. Maneuver nodes sure do make things easier. It used to be that you run the test by right-clicking on this and run test. I'm not sure. Activate the part through the staging sequence. Okay. Then that is reasonably fine. We can put in a new stage here, like that. And trying to just hold this position here. We're, of course, just getting into orbit. And we'll be there in about 15 seconds. We've got plenty of fuel to make this happen. The Free India is now actually fairly capable, now that we have some technology and some upgrades. Fantastic. And we are now in orbit. I'm just circularizing it. Good enough. So we're going to activate this through the staging sequence. Boom. So we've completed the contract to test the decoupler. That made us quite a lot of money. Fantastic. And now it is time, of course, to bring Jeb home. That will have to happen, however, next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.